So, after all the abusive messages I got last week from feminists, it made me realize that I too want to be a feminist. I'm just kidding, that is never gonna happen. Considering that things are pretty crazy at the moment between men and women, I feel like it's a good time to recap all the stupidity that feminism has brought us this week. In the last 2 weeks, Australian brand Peter Alexander has come under fire for stocking its shelves with a t-shirt that reads, "Boys will be boys." Because, what else would boys be? You know what? Forget I asked that. It's 2018. That's a pretty complicated question. Now, after a few people complained, the brand ended up removing the shirts from their stores and then issued an apology. One of the women who first complained said that the shirts were sexist and that they weren't appropriate. Yes, really. Sexist. What is interesting to me about this statement is that someone took offense to the term "boys will be boys," a simple term that's been used for decades to describe boys doing boyish things, which to me would mean like playing in the dirt and eating rocks and all that kind of stuff. It is incredibly interesting to me that somebody would take a phrase like that, an innocent phrase, a phrase that doesn't mean anything offensive, and turn it into something ugly. Yeah, it's sexist to say that boys will be boys because, boys. We're talking about men, therefore it's sexist. Yeah, Sydney, it's sexist because any mention of men makes it sexist. Now, a couple months ago, someone complained about a shirt that was stocked in Target. The shirt was for little girls, and the shirt read, "Girls are smarter." For those of us that speak English and live on planet Earth, the inference is that girls are smarter than boys. The thing was that Target didn't see anything wrong with having this sort of message stuck on its apparel, and so when someone complained, this was their response. "Hi Jacob, thanks for your comment. Our Lily Loves Velour print t-shirt is part of our women's youth range and was designed as a positive message to young women with no intention of causing offense to anyone. We appreciate you taking the time to raise your concerns." That's a nice sentiment. Poorly executed, but a nice sentiment. You know what? Yeah. I guess in 2018 that makes sense because a positive message meant to empower women does work by putting down men. Yeah, I see that. Now look, I'm gonna go ahead and say that there's a pretty big difference between telling boys to be boys and girls that they're smarter than boys, which really is the implication here. But how could I possibly forget that telling one whole gender that they're better than another whole gender is exactly the way to achieve empowerment? Saying that boys will be boys is genuinely a harmless sentiment. The only reason that it's been twisted and changed in recent times is because women have attributed something to it that's not correct. Like, boys will be boys means boys will be rapists, boys will be murderers, boys will be violent. Target's unfortunate bumble didn't make headlines, it didn't even make the papers, and it certainly didn't make any feminists incredibly angry. Nobody was storming in the streets, nobody was making a big fuss about it, and there was no social media storm about what the shirts actually said, despite the fact that, in my opinion, it was much worse than simply saying boys will be boys. Cindy, hello, what are you doing? Sorry, I was just practicing my oppression face. Okay, what are we talking about right, men? Okay, Sydney, it's 2018. Seriously, boys can be whatever they want. Yeah, sure, like in terms of work and things like that, like their job, yeah, they can do whatever they want. Honestly, Sydney, your grasp of feminist issues is really sad. I think part of the problem too is that justifying something by saying that it's female empowerment, and mind you, these are not adults that are buying these shirts, these will probably be like 7-year-olds, saying that this is something that should empower them is wrong. Telling boys that they will be boys, it's really not that much of a problem comparatively. It's becoming increasingly obvious that we hold women and men to different standards, and when I say this, there's a lot of things that have happened recently that have illustrated that point. Again, in Australia in the last 2 weeks, a woman hit her boyfriend with her car.
Captured on camera walking towards his girlfriend's vehicle after witnesses say she busted him in another woman's car. The girlfriend pulls out, then he is struck down and pinned under her car.
That man had allegedly cheated on the woman, and therefore there were a lot of women commenting and saying that her actions were justified and that the whole act itself was really funny. Yeah, cool, that's not even mildly psychopathic. This is hilarious, I'd still be laughing if it were the other way around. Moral of the story is don't cheat. A girlfriend tagged her boyfriend and then wrote, "See this? I'll do worse. I'll make sure you're dead." Oh, that sounds like a healthy relationship. I would have just cut his doodle off. I just can't, the more that I read these, I'm just... This makes me desperately uncomfortable. It makes me desperately uncomfortable that people celebrate hurting each other. Like, why? Why? How is this funny? I mean, yeah, cheating is not nice. Being cheated on feels really bad, but I mean, to justifiably say that it's okay to hit someone with a car because they cheated on you? No. Y'all need Jesus. Now, in the same week, an American story was released that talked about a young woman who took a machete to her ex-boyfriend's house and then forced him to have sex with her. Now, a number of people got pretty mad about the fact that all these publications were covering the story, but they weren't using the word rape to describe what the woman had done to the man. Because, you know, forced sex is rape. I've touched on this before, but there seems to be this reluctance in Western society to talk about issues and conceptualize male experiences and female experiences in the same way. These two instances that I've just talked about, for me, are case in point. A woman hits a man with a car because he cheated on her, and that's really funny and a good time to tag your partner and tell them if they do cheat on you, you're gonna do the exact same thing. A woman rapes a man, and apparently nobody wants to actually call a spade and call it rape. I don't profess to have all the answers when it comes to this topic, but I'd really like to know why it is that we downplay female-perpetrated violence. Is it because it doesn't fit into the male-perpetrator, female-victim paradigm? Or is it because society feels a need to shield women from criticism? We place an awful lot of emphasis on talking about the experiences of women when it comes to violent acts like domestic violence and rape. In fact, we mostly only talk about women when it comes to these situations, and we only talk about women as the universal victim and men as the universal perpetrator. But I think a huge failing on the part of society, and particularly Western society, is that when it comes to things that women do to men, we just simply don't look at it in the same way that we look at the things that men do to women. I mean, and I keep saying this, and apparently it just makes people really mad, but as far as I'm concerned, violence doesn't have a gender. And as long as we're going to talk about violence and talk about violent acts and try to get around violent acts, maybe we need to evaluate the fact that we are not thinking about the things that women do and the things that men do in the same way. I will say that there are things, particular situations, crimes, whatever, in society that are male-dominated or female-dominated, but the problem is that we're just really not that interested in talking about the male experience at all. Some of the comments that people left in relation to the woman who raped her ex-boyfriend were pretty gross. Is it bad that I saw this and thought, hey, good for her, LMAO? We're in a social climate right now where women have been through so much, and if they want to take a machete and rape a dude every now and then, all the power to them. They literally create life. I think they should get a pass sometimes, lol. To be honest, I'm really not surprised that a lot of women seem to have this mentality towards men, where they feel like men owe them because of all the things that men in the past, in like the 1900s, did to them. And so I feel like then we're actually just setting ourselves up to have these sort of situations happen and people really not take them that seriously. In a lot of ways, we're basically just saying, well, guys, you know, kind of suck it up and take it because basically you've done a lot of horrible things to women and therefore you deserve what you're getting. Yeah, you deserve to be raped at machete point. You deserve that. Now, last but not least, I want to move on to the last stupid thing that has happened this week regarding men and women. Two senators went head-to-head this week over comments that both of them had made to each other in Parliament. To put it in context, Parliament was voting on a bill regarding pepper spray and non-lethal weapons and allowing people to carry them. A female politician was giving a speech at which time Senator Sarah Hanson-Young yelled out something about men and stopping them from raping. Another senator named David Leinhelm responded to Hanson-Young's comments and told her to stop shagging men. Ergo, I guess his point was that if all men are rapists, then why is she spending time getting physical with them? The following result is that this started a media frenzy and a lot of whining on the part of Senator Hanson-Young, and basically they have asked for his resignation and him to apologize for his sexist slurs. Full disclosure, I don't actually have the clip from Parliament, so I can't actually verify what was said, but other politicians have stepped forward to say that she did say something basically relating to men as rapists, but I personally can't confirm her exact words. However, in other interviews, she has expressed opinions about men collectively.
Men cannot control themselves and deal with their own issues. It is not women's fault that men behave like morons and like pigs.
My point of bringing this up is not to debate whether or not the comments said in Parliament were acceptable or not, because I know a lot of people are going to get hung up on that. My point more is that why is it acceptable for a female politician to make collective comments about the men of Australia, but as soon as someone responds to that and says something similar about women, that's not acceptable? You literally here have a representative of the people some people, I'm not sure which people, saying things like men can't control themselves and men behave like pigs, and somehow that is perfectly justifiable, but it also reinforces the idea that we can say whatever we want about men, even if it's negative, especially if it's negative, and it's perfectly okay. However, I simply urge you just to replace the word men with women and then tell me if those comments are okay or not. Because I can tell you for a fact, as far as everything else goes, they would not be. As far as I'm concerned, collectively calling men rapists is the same thing as saying that all women are sluts. It's not true, and it's not okay to say. In the United States, people frequently tell Black Americans to get off the plantation, meaning that stop acting like you're a slave, stop acting like you're still in the time when there were slaves, and let's get on and let's move past this. I'd like to say the same thing to women. Women, get out of the kitchen. You're not a 1920s housewife. You're not fighting for basic human rights. No one is trying to subjugate you. So for goodness sake, get out of the kitchen. Get out of this kitchen mentality where you are the one that's being actively oppressed, because it is nonsense. We have this accepted double standard where it's perfectly okay to abuse men and say horrific things about men. But when the shoe's on the other foot and we're saying those same things about women, then it's not okay. I'm getting really sick of the argument that feminism is about equality, because feminism is not about equality. Even the actual definition of feminism says that feminism is about elevating the rights of women's to that of men's. Well, hey guys, it is 2018 and all your rights are elevated to the same level as men's. So let me just recap this, because this is the truth. Feminism does not care about men. Feminism does not exist to help men, and therefore it is very unsurprising to me when things are said about men and women are totally silent. But it also shows how you are total hypocrites. As soon as men's groups come forward and try to protect men against the horrible things that are being said against them, women scream and call them sexist. And you know what? It is ridiculous and it has to stop. So my question is, at what point do we really stop ourselves and say that we need to call a spade and accept that this behavior is not acceptable on either side? That you don't get to abuse people on either side or collectively talk about genders on either side. Really, we should just be expecting each other to be better. Treat each other better. If you wouldn't accept disgusting behavior towards a woman, then why on earth would you accept that same behavior towards a man? Call it out. If you're gonna call it out on either side, you gotta call it out on both. The last thing I want to say about all of this is, if you truly believe that women are all about, standing together and supporting one another, I really genuinely urge you to go and read the comments in the last video I posted on Facebook in particular, and go and read the comments from other women. And I'm going to assume most of them are feminists, or most of them just really aren't that educated. Go and read them, and then tell me how nice feminism is and how much feminism wants to create a united utopia. Go read them. I dare you. As always, if you like the video, hit subscribe. If you have a comment to leave, that's awesome. Just don't be rude about it. I try to upload on Wednesdays and Thursdays, sort of. And I'll see you guys next time.